Hello everybody, my name is Sam and today I'm sitting down with Mr. David Pysden. He's coming to us all the way from Australia. Mr. Pysden is the CEO of Unified Weapons Master, a company that wants to change the face of competitive martial arts as we know it. Mr. Pysden, welcome.
Hi Sam, nice to be with you.
Nice to be with you too. So let's get going, shall we? First of all, please tell me a little bit about yourself. What inspired you to create Unified Weapons Master, or UWM as it is known by all of us by now?
Well, the original idea for UWM actually was my business partner's, Justin Forstall's. He was training in Thailand at the Buddhiswan Sword Fencing Institute, and he saw these incredible martial artists. He was actually being trained by a guy who was in his mid-80s, a guy called Park Kru, and this is where the Thai Royal Guard and the Thai Special Forces train. And he saw these incredible elite athletes that no one had ever heard of. And he thought, wouldn't it be great if we could showcase the skills of these people in a modern environment without people getting hurt? And so that was where the idea for UWM came from. And since then, that was back in 1998. And over the last 5 years, we've been working on all of the technology that's required to actually bring UWM to life.
Actually, just before I called you, I was looking at a patent record, and it said that you first filed the patent for the scoring system in 2010. What took the delay from 1998 to 2010 to start working on this?
We'd actually been working on it together since 2008. So the first couple of years were spent just on the intellectual property and protecting the intellectual property rights. So we actually didn't even start building technology until about 2.5 years ago. So most of the development phase was built around planning the business, in planning the technology, and then in registering the patents. And we have patents registered in about 46 different countries. So we've gone to a lot of trouble to design a solution to an age-old problem. Which is that when people fight in armour, there's no way of knowing the outcome, because they're protected. And so what we've done is encase a whole lot of technology in that armour to objectively measure the force and location of strikes to the armour in real time, and to use medical data to determine what would have happened to an unprotected competitor. And that scoring method and the technical solution to that is what we've patented.
So, why did you choose the name Lorica for your armor?
Well, Lorica is actually Latin for body armor. And one of the more famous types of Lorica was the Roman legion's Lorica segmentata. That was in use from about the 9th century BC through to about the late 3rd century. And at the time, that was the pinnacle of technology, that armor solution in body armor. It's actually come a long way since then. We've used some of the principles of that armour today in terms of flexibility and mobility and coverage and protection, but we've added a whole lot of technology to that armour, and so we've done that to really bring sort of gladiatorial combat to a modern audience.
Yeah, I would hope that armor's come a long way since then. We have guns now. For the benefit of our viewers, could you walk me through the design and the construction of the Lorica?
Sure. Well, people have been solving the problem of armour and how to fight in armour for thousands of years. What they haven't been able to do, or haven't needed to do previously, is encase all this technology in it. And so a big part of the work that we have been doing has been around, first of all, impact testing and protection. And safety has been the paramount design consideration in coming up with the overall design for the Lorica. But another consideration, which typically wasn't used in medieval armour or armour from Roman times, is encasing all this technology in it and incorporating power supplies and being able to protect all that and still have it perform. And so a lot of design work has actually gone into solving some of those technical challenges. How to embed sensors in the armour, to put wireless relay systems in that can transmit the data to the scoring system, and to be able to process that all in real time reliably. So a lot of work went into the design phase for the armour. And similarly, we had to put a lot of effort into constructing armour that allowed people to move freely, because we want our fighters to be able to fight as they would in full combat. And typically, whenever you put armour on someone, you're going to restrict their movement somewhat. That's the trade-off between protection and articulation and mobility. But we think we've done a pretty good job with that. We've spent years researching and developing the design and construction of the armour. We've tested it with world champion martial artists, and it's come through very well. So the armour that you see at the moment are prototypes, stuff that's available online on our YouTube channel, through our Facebook page and our website, are all prototypes that we've built. And now we've just finished a Series B funding round, which is going to enable us to build production versions of that armour.
So, on the topic of protection and flexibility and whatnot, the Sydney Morning Herald reported that the heaviest blow landed in testing so far was a tomahawk to the head at a force of 600 kilograms, which for us Americans is about 1,300 pounds. How did the helmet hold up, and would a fighter be completely protected from that kind of force?
Yeah, so the force, it was actually about 8 kilonewtons of force, and the pounds of force translation that you've got there is about right. The helmet stood up very well. In fact, we've tested the helmet with very heavy weapons. I'm talking baseball bats, heavy oak bokkens and joes, and it stood up with flying colours. We have deliberately over-engineered the armour to protect against much heavier weapons than we will actually use in our combat fights. And the reason for that's obvious. We need to, the safety of our fighters is absolutely paramount. And in fact, our chairman, Justin, has tested the armour. He's been inside it when it's been struck by these heavy weapons. So we needed to make sure that it was going to work if we were prepared to test it on, one of the founders. And look, it stood up very well. So it's over-engineered for what it's doing.
Have you been inside the armour yourself?
I've worn the helmet. I haven't worn the full suit. We've only built a handful of suits, and they've been built specifically for the fighters that were wearing them.
Now, you did say that the Lorica is going to be having a production version very soon. How much is that going to cost when it's sold to the public?
So the versions that we're working on now are for our first events. We're building a number of suits so we can hold events, sometime in 2015. It'll be in around 12 to 18 months. At this stage, those suits won't be for sale to the public. Once we have held those events and started taking EWM out to the world, it's our intention to develop training versions of the armour. Now, that's a fair way down the track, and at this point, a price on those is not yet available, but we want to make them as affordable as we can so that as many people as possible can suit up and try on armour and try fighting in a Lorica, in a safe and controlled environment and under sort of expert supervision. But it's certainly our intention to make training versions available at an affordable price point.
Yeah, I wish I could afford one, but I'm kind of a high school senior worried about paying for college. Now, you did mention in regards to training that you're looking into law enforcement and military training applications for the Lorica. Why won't we see combat applications?
Well, the Lorica is designed to protect people and to objectively measure the force and location of strikes with real martial arts weapons to the armour in real time. And we've always seen training applications for that in military and law enforcement areas. And in fact, we've been approached by a number of defence organisations and law enforcement organisations to get suits. At this point, those suits aren't available, but as we develop production versions of this, we will make those available. And the scoring system will determine what the most effective offensive and defensive techniques are for people fighting with weapons. So that's going to be really useful for example, Navy personnel that are going on board ships and clearing ships room to room, or for close quarter combat training, where people can train with weapons and not get injured, but know what would have happened with those weapons. Having said that, the Lorica is not designed to be bulletproof. It is not designed as a modern warfare suit to be worn into battle. We have had some discussions with US SOCOM, which is the Strategic Operations Command of the US military. They're very interested in some of the design applications of our suit and some of the technology that we've used. So we're in kind of some ongoing discussions with them. But we're not building a version of the suit like they want for their the Talos project, the tactical.
Of course, I saw the YouTube video of that. That was very impressive.
Yeah.
So once the Lorica goes on sale and you'll have tournaments and whatnot, will fighters be able to customize their Loricas with their own colors and designs?
Yeah, absolutely. We think that's really important for people to be able to differentiate between the fighters. And you'll notice that in the prototypes that we built, they look quite similar. We have painted them differently and put different logos and so forth on them. But that will be taken to another level with the production versions of the suits. So we'll have different coloured suits. They can have the liveries of the fighters. That can be reflective of their own personalities or of the cultures that they come from. So there'll be a lot of detailing involved in those suits to help differentiate between fighters from different countries and different styles. We also intend to hold a competition soon where people can submit their own ideas for designs for the
I'm listening.
And the one that wins that will actually build that suit design.
I'll be submitting some mock-ups later. Now, how do you recruit fighters for the tournament?
Look, it's a really good question. It's a question we were asked by just about every investor that we approached, over the last 18 months. And you know that old expression, if you build it, they will come? Well, that certainly happened with Alorica. We have had hundreds of approaches from fighters from all around the world, from all different styles, from the Asian arts, from the historical European martial artists. We've been overwhelmed by the number of people who want to get into a suit and fight and train. And I think that's because we've solved a problem that's been around for, thousands of years. And that is when you train in these styles, there's actually no way you can test how good you are. There's nowhere that you can compete. And even when you're training, you have to pull the last shot. You can't actually deliver that last fatal blow because if you do, people get seriously injured or worse. And so what these suits do is enable you to train full contact and to know the outcome. So you know who would have killed who first or who would have incapacitated who first. And that has really resonated with fighters. So we've had fighters approach us from all different styles from around the world, from India and Thailand and Japan and China and Europe and America and the Middle East, literally all around the world wanting to suit up. So we don't see any problem finding fighters to fight in Alorica. In fact, it's the opposite problem. We've got to, go through quite a selection process to pick the very best fighters to fight in Alorica, at least for our first competitions.
Yeah, I wish I had coordination. That's why I'm sitting down right now. Now, what kind of weapons will we be seeing these fighters use?
So the idea is to allow them to use any type of weapon. I should stress that they're all blunt weapons. There are no sharp-edged weapons. But blunt, heavy martial arts weapons, and that goes from swords, knives, bows, staffs, machetes, joes, tomahawks, even projectile weapons. The patent even covers projectile weapons. But it is important to stress that they're blunt but heavy martial arts weapons. But it'll be anything goes. We can have any type of weapon in there. We've even got one scenario where we can have on the walls, we can have all different weapons there, and the fighters can try to start in the middle and then go and grab a weapon and fight with their weapon of choice. And then if they get disarmed, if they can get to the wall again, they can pick up another weapon. We can have, people fighting with multiple weapons and shields. We can have 2-on-1, 3-on-1 team events. There's a lot of flexibility and we think some quite exciting entertainment prospects with that level of variation.
That sounds incredible. Now, you've mentioned on Facebook and on Twitter that UWM might have a category for fighting with bayonets. Bayonets are placed on guns. Isn't that kind of cheating?
Well, obviously, they won't be attached to live firing guns. But bayonets are a very effective weapon in the hands of a trained fighter. And in fact, they're still used in modern warfare today. And when we put that post up on Facebook, we were amazed at how many people came back with a resounding, yes, you should include bayonets in UWM. So there's a lot of guys out there that actually train in that now, and in the right hands, the bayonet's a very effective weapon. But rest assured, we won't be putting it on a live firing gun in our competitions.
I've read that the United States Army has created its own martial art with the whole purpose to be that the soldier can get his opponent away from him so he can use his firearm. That might be kind of interesting to see how that could work. Okay.
Yeah, while we have designed the system for use with projectile weapons, it's not designed for use with guns. That is a close quarter combat technique, what you're talking about. It's used very, very widely, not just in the US military, but in militaries around the world. I think it's important to note, one of the reasons that traditional weapons-based martial arts have started to fall away and not be practiced as much anymore is the invention of the technology that you're talking about, which is guns. Over the last couple of centuries, these arts have slowly been dying because there's nowhere really to practice, and as I mentioned before, there's nowhere to compete. And in modern warfare, the gun has really taken over. But in self-defense situations, quite frequently, it's someone's picked up a baseball bat or a bottle or a club or a knife or something like that. And so it's really important to actually know how to defend yourself against a handheld weapon that isn't a gun. Part of the reason for developing the Lorica and this technology is to honour, preserve and reignite interest in weapons-based martial arts. And they're arts that have been practiced and developed over thousands of years in different countries all around the world. We want to bring those arts to a modern audience. And I think the gun has played a role in the decline of those arts, and we want to reverse that and see those arts brought to a modern audience.
I kind of have this vision now of world leaders in Lorica suits settling world conflicts. That would be great. But moving on, how will winners be determined in matches? Because you've mentioned that final blow, and of course you have the patent for the point system. So will winners be determined by points? Will it be incapacitation, or will it be a combination of both?
So the way the scoring system works is we have a medical database underpinning the scoring system. And that database at this point includes fracture profile data and blunt trauma data. So we know when you hit the jaw with 1,200 pounds of force that the jaw is going to shatter, and that'll render the fighter unable to continue. So we know how much damage each part of the body can sustain before it gets broken in a blunt trauma environment. An evolution of the scoring system, which we're already starting to develop, is an edged weapon simulation, or EWS version. Now this will come later, it's several years away, because the data set for that doesn't exist. Funnily enough, there isn't a lot of data out there on how much force it takes with a very sharp weapon to do critical damage to a human body. But we're going to do that research. We have a medical expert as part of our advisory board who's also one of our investors. And he's helping us build that data set over the next couple of years. And so we intend to evolve the scoring system to include edge weapon simulation. For now, what we do is we calculate in real time the damage that's occurring to each competitor, and we know at what point they would be incapacitated or knocked out or killed. And we can display that in real time. We have a referee in there who can stop the fight when that occurs, give the competitor a standing 8 count. We'll deduct the life from them, because it'll be like a video game in a lot of ways. They can have multiple lives, otherwise it could be over very quickly. And then the fight will continue, and that fighter will have one less life. And the winner will be whoever has inflicted the most damage on their opponent. If neither of them have been killed, then it will be the one with the least damage sustained, according to our medical database, that's declared the winner.
Now you mentioned that in 8 to 12 months we're expecting to see an advanced prototype or production version of the Lorica. When will we first see it televised?
So we'll be streaming stuff online on our UWM website, which is just uwm.tv. All the videos are available now on our YouTube channel, which is just YouTube/Unified Weapons Master. And you can see the stuff that we've shot so far now on our YouTube channel and via our website. Later on, we do expect to have live events broadcast, but we're going to start very small. We're going to hold a number of underground events to get the concept and the format right, get feedback from the people that attend those events on what they like, what they don't like, what works, what doesn't work, and slowly refine that over a number of events. But by the time we're ready to hold our first sort of medium-scale event, which will be in around 18 months' time, we should have got most of those things ironed out. So in the first instance, it will be available online, and later, we hope to distribute it via broadcasters in different territories all around the world.
So it will be broadcast in the United States, is my next question.
Well, we don't have a broadcast partner yet, but having said that, we have a strategic partner who is very well connected in media, and I believe we will be able to broadcast it in the US when the time is right. That's a little way away yet.
Now, a question that came to mind for me, what kind of arenas will we be holding the tournaments in?
So if by arenas you mean venues,
Yeah.
initially we're going to start small. We've just, the underground events will just be a few hundred people. Then we'll slowly grow those in size to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people. By the time we get to the end of our first year of operations, there'll be sort of 10,000 seat arenas. And then eventually, if things go well, we hope the public's going to respond to this, and we'd like to hold them in sort of 40,000 seat arenas. But that's probably at least 3 or 4 years away. But we can see these events being held in a similar sort of venue to where you would go and see UFC right now, or even WWE. Large-scale arenas where you have thousands of people coming to watch live combat. And we hope that's going to be very entertaining.
Oh, I definitely see that. Please come to Miami. Now, the first tournament, how's that going to be structured?
So it's quite likely the first tournament will be a knockout tournament. In a lot of ways similar to the very first UFC event where you had an elimination series, and the fighter that wins goes through to the next round and ultimately is crowned a champion. So we'll have a small pool of fighters in the first event, but we see that very quickly growing because there's so many streams to weapons-based fighting. In Japan alone, you have 22 different weapons-based systems. And that's the most of any country. So we think this is going to be really big in Asia. We can see national championships happening in individual styles. So you get the best samurai masters competing to become the best samurai master of Japan. But what's really going to be interesting is when we match those guys up against the best sort of Shaolin staff master from China, or the best Kalari Payat master from India. And when you get those national champions competing against each other, that's when we think it's really going to be quite interesting and generate a lot of interest from different markets.
Now, when we have large matchups like that, like national tournaments or the best in each nation of certain martial arts, would we be doing this televised as almost episodes, or would it be like pay-per-views?
So eventually we want to get to a pay-per-view model. In the short term, we're actually going to give the content away. So a lot of it will be streamed free online through our own UWM.tv channel. But later on, when we have the really big matchups, that's when we probably move to a pay-per-view model. But again, that's several years down the track in our plan. In the short term, we have a number of media that we're looking at. We're doing a documentary on the development of this sport. We have plans for a reality TV series, sort of similar to The Ultimate Fighter, that's now in its 20th season for UFC. And then we have the competitions themselves, and they'll all be made available online. And we hope to secure some broadcast partners in the near future that will actually carry that through either free-to-air or cable.
Something tells me you're a big fan of UFC.
We're massive UFC fans. Yeah, we love UFC. We've been to UFC every time they've been to Australia. In fact, UFC is very popular here. The first event that they held here sold out quicker than any UFC event ever held anywhere in the world. So Australians love UFC, and we're big. We all have martial arts backgrounds. We're big UFC fans.
Now, you are the CEO of the company, so at the end of a fight, will you be in a luxury box giving a thumbs up or thumbs down like a Roman emperor?
I don't know about that. One of the beauties of the technology we've developed, Sam, is that there is no need for anyone to actually lose their life or even really get injured. In fact, one of the real advantages we have over a competition like UFC is one of the problems they have is they're constantly having to change the cards on their fights because fighters get injured in training or they get injured in the fights all the time. And so they're constantly shuffling the cards, and that's frustrating for fans who want to see a particular matchup and then it gets cancelled because someone's been injured. For us, because they're in the suits, they're protected, and what that means is we can pretty much guarantee that we're going to be able to carry the matchups that people want to see when we go from sort of city to city. So I guess the thumbs up that we give will be that those fighters get to fight on another day and not actually get injured because the Lorica protects them.
Now, we've mentioned video games a couple of times during this interview. Will there be a UWM video game? Because I would play the ever-loving expletive out of that.
Yeah, that's certainly our plan. So initially we're developing mobile versions of the gaming. Longer term, we see real scope for motion-controlled platform game versions. One of the bits of feedback that we've had from the gaming companies that we've spoken to is that the most important thing is to develop a really playable game, something that people want to play, regardless of what it's branded with or what the characters are. the gameplay has to be fantastic. So a big part of the development process for us is finding the right gaming developers and partners to work with to do that. But we certainly have plans for gaming. You know, we think people will really want to fight against a virtual version of a character that they've seen on TV. You know, whether that's a Japanese samurai master or some other master from another part of the world, or to play their mate. So, you know, a fan in Japan could play someone in the US and be fighting, you know, with you know, weapons in front of their motion-controlled platform game, and you know, to beat each other up across the internet. We think there'll be a lot of interest in that.
I'm a pretty big fan of video games. I play a lot of fighting games, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter style, and I would love to see something like that. I've got a couple ideas myself. But
well, we've actually gone to school with the interface for those games is kind of ubiquitous. People look at a Mortal Kombat screen and they instantly know, you know, what's happening. And so that health bar that you have in Mortal Kombat is something that we're looking at incorporating into the scoring system for UWM.
Except yours goes up.
Correct. Well, yeah, we're going to play with that. We've actually got some broadcast designers looking at helping us with refining how best to display that. One of the important things to note about UWM is because we have lots and lots of sensors, like over 50 sensors around the body, and each of them are recording data, it's actually too much information for someone in the audience to take in at once, right? So we just want to display the key information with the scoring system. But what we will develop, and this is kind of in parallel with the gaming development, is a second screen experience, where you can interact with the data that's coming down in real time from a fight on your favourite fighter, on an app that's on your iPhone or on your iPad or your tablet device, and you can actually, you know, see and interact with that data in real time. So we've got very simple data coming up on the broadcast screen or the main screen, which says, you know, how much force was involved with that last shot and what that's done to their overall health. But then you've got all this other data that you can interact with on a second screen.
Now, of course, what's next? What are you guys planning in the future?
Okay, well, I've touched on one of those things, which is the evolution of the scoring system to involve edge weapon simulation. For us, the immediate future involves building out enough suits to hold our first events. So that's what we're focused on over the next 12 to 18 months. And then holding those first events, refining our offering, you know, getting it right, and then taking it out to the world. And we'll do that in the form of a roadshow that visits a number of different countries around the world and showcases, you know, weapons-based artists from different parts of the world, you know, fighting in non-mortal combat.
Now, the final question, is there anything that I didn't cover tonight that you would like people to know?
Just if they're really interested in what they've seen or heard about UWM, to go and visit our website, uwm.tv. On there are links to our Facebook page. They can subscribe to our UWM newsletter where they can get regular updates from us. Those go out at least monthly. And if they really want to support us, they can join as Gladiator members. That's $88, and that gets them exclusive UWM merchandise. It gets them access to a Gladiator member website and discounts on merchandise and a whole bunch of other offers that they can read about on the website. But they can find more about that at uwm.tv.
Now, Mr. Pysden, thank you so much. I'm already a big fan, I guess you could say. Everyone that I've shown this to, whether friends, family, people at the newspaper, every time I show them UWM, they're like, whoa, that is incredibly cool. So you've already got a fan base here. Now, when you guys are televised and playing in 40,000-seat arenas, please don't forget about who made you famous. Sorry?
We'll make sure you get front row tickets to our first event in Miami.
Please do. So, once again, thank you so much, Mr. Pysden. It's been very nice to talk to you.
Pleasure. Thanks for your time, Sam.
Thank you. Have a good... Well, actually, it's day for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Actually, that is true. It is Australian Father's Day today, isn't it?
Actually, it was a breakfast that I had to go to at my daughter's school this morning. Father's Day is on Sunday, but yeah, it's this week.
I think Australian Father's Day is a bit like American Father's Day, but with more spiders. All right. Very nice to talk to you. Thank you very much, Mr. Pysden.
You too. Thanks, man.
Have a good day.